Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/usingyourpower. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Today, I'd like to recommend The Science of Self-Confidence by Brian Tracy. I've listened to this many times, and I believe it's essential education for just about anyone.
Welcome to usingyourpower.com, and I am Maveen, Kaura.
And I'm David Andrew Wiebe.
Okay, so today we kind of decided to switch it up today. Usually David does all the intros, but we decided to go with myself trying it out for the first time, so I think that went okay.
That might have surprised some people, hey?
Yeah, I think so. I think after you listen to something 21 times or more, you probably get programmed to thinking that the same person's going to keep talking. So I think by switching it, we maybe try to keep some people on their feet.
That's right. Changes the dynamic just a little bit. But
yeah.
Hey, by now people have heard the theme song, 10 times, 20 times, however many times, depending on how many times they've listened to the podcast, because it plays at the beginning, at the end too, right? So
absolutely. And, I'd love to ask our listener what their feedback on our theme song is.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it, and we're open to changing it up maybe down the line. I think we're very happy with what we've got right now, but, we're also open to exploring other ideas. There's no voiceover for it, so there is that, but I think it still sounds good as a music track, right?
Oh, I love it, man. I know you recorded it, so, it's a good, I think about 20 seconds long, and it's upbeat, and, as soon as I heard it the first time when you played it for me, I was like, yo, man, this is perfect. I love it. It's exactly, a nice mix between the way me and you think and talk. I think that the instrumental there just plays it perfectly for the show as well.
Yeah, very funky and very succinct. And I guess that's what you want in a podcast theme anyway. You don't want to keep people listening to music for a minute or 3 minutes or whatever, unless it's like a really well orchestrated song.
Right. No, for sure. So what do you suppose that we should be talking about today?
Well, I guess we're going to take a look at getting back to your 2017 goals. So many of you out there probably have set goals. We know that a lot of people do set New Year's resolutions, and if not New Year's resolutions, then they still have certain goals that they want to achieve for the year. And I think it's important to just get periodic reminders like this one to go back and have a look at how you're doing and how you're progressing. And even if you got off track, don't be discouraged, because you still have the opportunity to maybe rethink or come back to your goals or think about why you're not actually moving forward with them, and then come back and think about what your goals maybe should actually be instead of what you originally set them to be. Statistics tell us that only 45% of Americans usually make a resolution, and only 8% are ever successful in achieving and keeping their resolution. And 49% say they have infrequent success with the New Year's resolution, and 24% said they have never succeeded with it. And that's some stats according to Statistic Brain. And it's not really surprising to me, perhaps not to Maveen either, that so many people maybe have resolutions or goals or objectives or targets or whatever, however you want to define it, even maybe just theme words they're trying to live by for the year, and they repeatedly fail and they don't get to where they want to go, right?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of times it's probably because they haven't developed the right habit in order to start that resolution on January 1st, right? I know a lot of times for some reason we use this date of January 1st as a date that we're going to start all our brand new goals on, and we're going to achieve them all in the next 12 months. But for something I've always done, and I know you probably are very similar to me, but before I set that date as my starting date of January 1st, and keep in mind, January 1st is a date that can be tomorrow as well. It doesn't have to be that exact calendar January 1st. There's a new January 1st every single day. That is our calendar year, right? So, I always start 2-3 months prior to me starting that goal. So I start developing the right habits to get into that, mindset where, if my goal, for example, is to read 30 books, well, I'm going to have to start getting in the mindset of starting to read first so I can start then developing the right habits to, accomplish that goal starting on January 1st.
Absolutely. And I think even like businesses have a different calendar, or at least it depends on what business, but like network marketing, I believe the business calendar always began in like September. So then if you were trying to hit a certain pin or a certain level within the business, you always had to achieve it by a certain deadline in order to be counted, or else you would just cycle back into the new year, the new business year. Not that you would mind, because you'd still have the income, right? But, as far as getting pins goes, it was kind of relevant.
Well, absolutely. And the same thing in business as well, right? I mean, depending on when your fiscal year end is and fiscal year start is, absolutely you want to get a certain amount of things within your business accomplished. Then you want to set the new targets for the new year as well, right? So, I mean, those dates are important, especially when you're in a business. But when we start looking at a little bit of personal level, I mean, we can always go back, right? And reset our goals, just like businesses can. It can be a little bit tougher if you're in a sales position and you're kind of playing behind the 8 ball. But, if you know where you're starting from, you can always improve from where you are at that moment.
Absolutely. So I think the key point is, you're hearing this right now. Maybe now is the right time to rethink your goals, or maybe just review them and reflect on them and think about them. If you're not moving forward in the way that you expected, just, tweak and restructure how you're planning to achieve them, or just set it for another 12 months ahead. If it's April, for example, then set it for next April, your target date, and see what you can do in those 365 days.
That's right. Just use those 3 months before that as practice, right? You don't have to, we can always restart our goals and reset them and begin again. And that's the whole benefit of setting goals, right? And that's kind of why people have vision statements and mission statements for their businesses or even for their lives, right? Because they understand where they want to be. But again, there's new challenges that come up every single day, right? I mean, I've watched TV commercials and they have, all the best food that you want to eat. And it's always late night, when I'm not really hungry anymore, but they start showing me these commercials and I start craving, and I might go downstairs and, open up a bag of chips or something. But I always learned if I don't have a bag of chips at home, I can't really crave chips. I'll have to open up a bag of something else, like maybe a bag of carrots instead, right? So learning how to deal with those little cravings or instances where they can cause failure will also help you achieve your goals into the remainder of 2017.
That's right. And we're living in the now, but like the results that we have now aren't necessarily a reflection of what we've done in the past. And that's sort of a difficult concept for all of us to accept. You're already on a trajectory. You're already moving towards certain things based on your habits, based on things you've accomplished, based on things you've already done. You're just not necessarily seeing all the results of the work and time and effort that you've already put into them. So don't get discouraged. Don't go back to the past down memory lane and go, gosh, like based on yesterday, I still haven't gotten to where I want to go. You don't know the things that you've already set in motion by writing down those goals, working towards those goals, working on those habits. And so don't evaluate today and go, I'm not where I want to be. Rather, know that you're on that trajectory. You've already put the train in motion and it's on those rails, and you just got to keep it on those rails.
Yeah, man, I love that. It's so true, right? You speak your goals into reality, right? That's one of the things I always heard.
Right.
And the other thing I always heard is what you just hit on as well is, whatever you do today, the results of what you do today, just like our show, right? When we did our episode 1, we weren't expecting our results to be, 100% making hundreds of thousands of dollars on episode 1. We realized it's a process. It's going to take time. We have to build our audience just like we've been able to do, and have people come back and interact with us, which is what we're also doing as well, right? And from those small steps, we keep building on those steps, right? Just like, if you're going to succeed in any part of the goals that you've set for yourself.
I think that's a key point, because a lot of people are going to look at maybe some quote unquote instant successes, which more often than not were 10 years in the making, or they're also going to look at bloggers or podcasters that got everything, in order within 8 episodes or 10 episodes of starting, and they have this huge audience and tons of money coming in. But I think, you still have to think about the scale of things. Like these people that only invested in those 10 blog posts or whatever it is, maybe still put in 100 hours per blog post in terms of researching, writing, editing, posting, formatting, marketing. And that marketing piece is huge. Maybe they shared it with every single person they even come to mind, build new connections, research the industry, try to get on podcasts, guest post. You don't really know all the work that's gone into it. So in terms of scale, they've probably put in just as much work, if not more, if they've reached that point. So you just got to keep steady, even if it's an hour a day, an hour a night, whatever time that you have available for your goals, you just got to stay consistent and keep doing it daily.
For sure. And, one of the things that we've sat down and did as well was we looked at what we want to accomplish for this show as well, right? We're going to sit down, know what we want to do, the type of products that we want to put out to our listening audience as well, right? So those are the things that we will obviously do in 2017. But again, if we're not on track to that, that's okay. We sit down, we review our goals, and then just kind of figure out how to get back on track, or even see if those are even important for us to do anymore, because they may not line up with what our audience is asking for, or what is needed for us to do anymore.
Yeah, we're both big book readers, so that's one of the reasons why we kind of started with the things that we've started with. But obviously, we're thinking about other monetization strategies. I think building an online community would be awesome, and interacting with people that way. I think doing live events periodically, bringing people together in one spot, and sharing ideas and thoughts and new insights into the various things that we talk about on the show. I think it'll be incredible to perhaps launch some ebooks or audio courses and things like that. But those are all things that we're thinking about, and we're kind of tweaking and adjusting as we kind of figure out what you guys want. So
Absolutely. So, one of the things that when I was going through this topic is, trying to find reasons or ways that we could help our, the audience, you, the listener, how we can help you, get back on track, right? So
yes.
One of the first thing I wrote down was really find the reason that you did not succeed, right? So find that one reason, or maybe many reasons that you did not succeed. Was it because you weren't prepared for that goal? Did you not have enough information? Did you not have the right, maybe people or in there to help you, or did you not have the right tools, right? Maybe you didn't read enough books, and maybe you weren't motivated to even do that. Just because you write the goal down does not mean you're motivated to accomplish the goal. Maybe someone told you, hey man, you're really good at guitar, and you said, you know what, I'm gonna be a guitar player, I'm gonna practice every day. But maybe you weren't really motivated to do it, you just only did it because someone said, hey, you might be good at this, right?
I think that ties right in with the questions that I wrote down in advance for our listeners. So I'll definitely provide opportunities for you to chime in with your some thoughts on these too, Mav. But I think these are all questions worth considering if you just don't feel like you're moving forward with your goals. The first is, are your goals written down? Is it have you actually taken the time to put pen to paper to write them down? And did you put them somewhere where you can actually look at them and review them regularly, so that you're actually aware and conditioning your mind and your brain to think about those goals consistently? I mean, in a way, it is like a quote unquote wonderful obsession is what goals are. If we don't become increasingly focused and obsessed with them, then we're kind of setting ourselves up for failure in a way. It's really weird, because you would think, well, obsession's not a good thing, and true, like there's a lot of things where obsession is not a really great quality to have. But when it comes to goals, you want to be driven, you want to be right on them, and to be thinking about them constantly. So without those regular reminders, I think we get off track pretty easily. And you think of an airplane, it's off track 99.9% of the time, constantly course correcting to properly arrive at its destination. So without course correction and thinking about where we're trying to get to and how we've gotten off track, we could easily miss the mark with our goals.
Right. I do like the idea of writing your goals down. That's such a huge thing, right? That's one of the first things I read when I started reading, books about goal setting and whatnot, right? Write your goal down and write how you want to accomplish. I always, heard that you should put a date at the end of it, right? I mean, I guess that's what we're doing when we're setting New Year's resolutions. You're saying, this is what I'm going to accomplish in the next 12 months. Now, it doesn't have to be something that takes you 12 months to accomplish. It can be done a lot quicker for certain things, and some things may take you 2 or 3 years. You're just really setting the foundation for accomplishing that goal 2-3 years from now, right? But I do like the idea of writing the goal down. If it's important to you, you should write it down. You should review it. One of the things that you said too, I loved it. And because if you're not reviewing that goal that's written down, how do you know that you're going to be on track to accomplishing that goal as well?
Yeah, and these are really the basics of goal setting, and I'm sure we'll go deeper, but I think it's still important to cover all of them. The next thing I want to ask you is, are you connected with your why? If you don't know why you're moving towards those goals, it makes it a lot harder to stay on track. Like, even if it's the type of thing where I need to get healthy and I need to lose weight because my doctor told me to. Well, it's not your doctor's goal, is it? It's your goal. You have to own it. And if you don't own it, then you can't make forward progress with that. So it's not enough to like hear from your doctor that you might have a heart attack within 2 years if you don't change your lifestyle. You still have to think of it in terms of, this is my goal. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for my health. And then you can sort of begin to think about, I'm doing this for my family and my friends, and I'm doing it for my future and things like that. But you got to start with you.
That's right. And, and one of the things you have to, I think, look at too is how to connect yourself to that want and need, right? I do love your example of the doctor telling you that, hey, you're going to, if you're going to die in 2 years, if you don't start taking care of yourself, how are you going to take ownership of that as well, right? No, just because a doctor tells you that, are you going to give up and say, I got 2 years, I'm going to go live life for the next 2 years? Or are you actually going to try to extend your life and start taking care of yourself? Because sometimes it's something really simple, like cleaning up your diet, maybe exercising a little bit, going for a walk, finding ways to de-stress. If you're not willing to do simple things like that, then maybe you won't be able to prolong your life, and then you kind of give up. And are you really, our listener, I don't think is the type of person that's going to give up. I don't think they wouldn't be listening to Using Your Power, because we're about using that inner power from inside to make yourself an outward better life, right? And I believe that when you connect to the understanding of why you want to be a better person, and you review your goals, like we said at the starting, once they're written down, you will find a way to continue then to build on that.
Exactly. And as another example, I used to set like monetary goals, which I don't see a problem with. And I know that some people have done well and accomplished with that. So I'm not telling anyone not to do it. I just know that for me, whenever I set goals like I want to make 6-figure income this year, it actually didn't motivate me. So I knew that it wasn't connected with my why. I think my why is more tied to helping people and teaching them and educating them and sharing them with them, as opposed to just some kind of monetary goal. And I think the money will come if I focus on the right things.
Right. And that's kind of why we did the episode on how to make $100, right? Because we could have done an episode like a lot of the other podcasters and bloggers out there and said, hey, how to make $1 million or how to make your first 6 figures. But, if you have to know how to make a simple $10 or a simple dollar before you can learn how to make more and add more zeros to that, right? So I think when we did the how to make $100, it's something that people know how to do, is make $100. But can you take your spare time and then turn that, into $100? It could be a little hobby or whatnot, right? So, I'd love to tell people how to make 6 figures, but we're on our way to projecting to get to there as well.
Yes.
So until we get there, we won't be doing a show on that, because it's not really coming from a factual place, right? I know myself and yourself, we can go online, we can research all the notes, put a great episode together, and then tell people, hey, this is how you make $100,000. But it's not going to be real. It's not who we are, and we're going to project to be different people than who we are, right? So we really want to make it and bring it right down to the simple things, how to make $100. If that can be, a simple goal, and it can be done by helping people, like you said, and I think that's what has brought me and you together, actually. Is because we do want to help a lot of different people, and we're not only focused on making money. Absolutely, to live the lifestyles we hope to live, we're not looking to live maybe $10 million lifestyles. We're looking just to be able to take care of our families right now, and have enough income coming in where we're in control of our time. And we did a little talk on that as well with time and money. So if you haven't heard that episode, definitely go take a peek.
Absolutely. And I think it's more exciting for us to document our progress and then share it with you as it comes along. It's a lot more fun for us. And you're exactly right. We could do all the research and put together an episode on how to make 6 figures or $1 million or whatever. And we know different ways people have achieved that lifestyle, but I think it would be better once we're actually there. And my next question then is, are you willing to make changes in your life to accomplish your goals? A lot of people will set goals and then their lifestyle doesn't really change, or their habits don't really change, or the routine doesn't really change. And they don't realize that that's something that needs to shift in order for them to actually accomplish their goals. So for example, you go in with the best intentions, but you realize, okay, I don't really actually have an extra hour in my day. What do I do? And at that point, you might actually have to get up an hour earlier or something like that in order to begin working towards those goals. And that's kind of connected to another point, which is just, are you willing to do whatever it takes to move towards that goal? if not, I mean, there's it like I said earlier, you sort of have to get obsessed with that goal in order to move towards it and achieve it. You need to be thinking about it regularly every single day. So if that's not the point you're at, you're probably not willing to make the proper sacrifices or the necessary sacrifices to get that goal.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I like what you said was even get up an hour early, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that is something we can do, and you have the option to do. And that's actually one of my goals for this year is not necessarily to get up an hour early, but it's to get up an hour early so I can meditate and still be able to do all the things I want to do. So the way I started that was I started by setting my alarm, and then, you know, I knew what time I woke up. I woke up at 6:30 every day, but then every day I would just set my alarm for the 5:30 time. But now I just get out of bed 10 minutes earlier every single day until I've made it a habit of getting out of bed by 5:30, and now it's just a daily process where I'm getting out of bed at 5:30 every day, right? So now the other thing on the flip side of that is, do you really need to get up an hour early, or do you need to look at where do you spend your time every single day?
Yeah.
So one of the things I actually wrote down was, you know, maybe we need to take a look at our own schedules and see what is actually taking the majority of our time in our schedule. Are we filling it with things that are important for us to get us to our goals, or are we just kind of filling it with the fluff of the day and then trying to add our goals in there, you know, whenever we can, right? So we really have to, I think, make our goals, you know, the most important. Like you said, you know, if that's what you want, you have to live it, you have to breathe it. Those are the things that, you know, ignite you, and those are the things that, you know, trigger the excitement within yourself, right? So those are the things that you will do, and everything else that's not part of your goal, you have to then really think about, and I think you'll agree, David, is it really that important then for me to continue focusing on these, you know, low quality, you know, lifestyle goals that I have that are not going to get me to the high quality of lifestyle that I've been trying to get to?
Some really great points there. And yeah, I think it goes back to like the Stephen Covey method of prioritization. I think it's just a very simple way of thinking about it. It may not be like the ultimate time management practice, but it certainly does help you think in terms of what your priorities are. So many of us focus on high urgency, low priority tasks, and that's pretty much your to-do list. It doesn't mean that those items don't need to get done. Absolutely, they might have a deadline. I know I've got a to-do list right in front of me right now, and that tells me what I need to accomplish this week in terms of the various writing assignments and other things that I'm doing, and some things for my website too. But I know that most of this, even producing content for my website, is not necessarily high priority. High priority is like writing books. High priority is you know, business development or getting new customers or growing my email list. Those are high priority things, but may not be urgent. So yes, you might have to restructure or reschedule your life so that you are spending 1 or 2 hours or 3 hours on your high priorities, because otherwise you might not do it because the urgent has a way of taking over all your time. Another question is, are your goals realistic based on the time and resources available to you? And that kind of goes back to the last thing I said about time, but in terms of resources, you know, does your goal require you to put a lot of money into it in order to be successful? And if so, like, where's the income coming from in order to support that goal? So even with something like, I want to do 80 paintings this year, great. But can you afford all the canvases, all the paint, all the tools that you need in order to do all those paintings this year? I mean, you'll find the time if you're passionate about it, but what if you don't have the money to support that?
Right, and I do like the idea what you said. You know, I'm going to do 80 paintings this year, but then I think you also got to decide what are you going to do with those paintings as well, right? Is your goal to then make money off those paintings, or is your goal to just hang them in your own home? You know, are you giving them away to friends? And once you kind of know what you're going to do with those paintings as well, right? So if your goal is to, let's say, sell those paintings at, let's say, $500, then of course, absolutely, you're going to be able to afford the additional canvases, the paints, the brushes, and everything. But if your goal is to just hang them on your walls or give them away for free, then your point is absolutely great, right? Like, how are you going to pay for all the additional supplies? Because 80 paintings can cost, you know, not only in tools, but also in time as well, right? So looking at how long is it going to take you to do those paintings? You know, what kind of time can you put towards it? What time of the day are you going to put towards it, right? I know many of us have probably also heard, you know, 9 to 5 is when we work for our, you know, our day, you know, 9 to 5 takes care of our money, and our 5 to 9 takes care of our dreams in the future, right? So,
exactly,
or something
right.
along that line. I'm pretty sure I messed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But
No, the point is, yeah, I love that point.
yeah, but if we got to figure out how we're going to utilize our time and what part of the day that we're going to utilize to paint in this example as well, right? Because a lot of people I know will burn the candle at both ends as well, right? They'll stay awake as long as they need to. They'll go to sleep 3-4 hours a night, and that's it. And they'll get up and start doing what they need to do, right? And again, I think that's what you're talking about, that burning passion. Do you have that fire in you that makes you want to get up and not worry about sleep, right? And I think once you start getting to that type of mindset, you'll go for your goals every single day.
Yeah, and I think what you said is a great way of reconnecting with your why. Like, what am I going to do with those paintings? Okay, I want to give it away to friends. Awesome. Now you have a why for why you're going to actually do those paintings, and 80 is a lot. So yeah, you would definitely want some kind of motivation. And then the last question I just wanted to ask everybody was, do your goals inspire you? I think there is sort of that sweet spot that a lot of people talk about, something that makes you a bit uncomfortable, but not so uncomfortable that it seems impossible. So, you want to stretch yourself with your goals if possible. Maybe you have to bring on a new, employee or a contractor or a friend or a partner to help you with your project and take it to where you want to go. And that's the only way it's actually going to get done. Well, if those goals are inspiring you, you will do it. But if your goals are not really motivating you in any way, then they're not serving you. So it's time to rethink your goals.
Right. And I just want to maybe have yourself, David, and our listeners here think about, are your goals inspiring you in a slightly different way? Just because the goals, let's say, are inspiring you, are they the right time of your life to be doing those goals, right? So for example, I know I want to travel the whole world, and that's something that inspires me to travel, and I work hard to be able to do that. But is right now the right time to travel the world? Or maybe 10 years from now, when I have all the right things in the background set up, where now I have enough money coming in, all the things I've taken care of it, and 10 years from now, that'd be a better time for me to travel the world, right? So I think your goals should inspire you to do things, but I think you should also look at the right timing for those goals, right? If it's a health goal, business goal, probably most likely that you're going to be thinking about now and the future. But if it's stuff like traveling, for example, then absolutely it might be something that you can do right now. But if you're struggling to be able to travel because you're throwing everything on your credit cards, it might not be a great goal. That although it's very inspiring, but it may not be a great goal right now.
That's true. And that's, some people might take it the wrong way when you say do it, whatever, will be willing to do whatever it takes to actually get that goal, and then spend a ton of money that you don't have on vacations you can't afford. Well, that's not a really great way to problem solve. There are better methods. So yeah, that's a really great point. We all need to be thinking about that, what's realistic. And I think as far as health goals go, health needs to be ongoing. It's a great thing to say I want to be 40 pounds lighter, or to gain this much in muscle mass, or be this percentage of body fat or anything, but ultimately in the grand scheme of your life, and it might not be something you're thinking about if you're in your 20s, health has to be an ongoing priority. It cannot be just now or just later.
No, for sure. And like they say, health is wealth.
Yes.
Right. And that's, I think we've said that a few times in a few different podcasts, and it rings true, right? If you're not healthy, you may not have the best. But then in the flip side of it, I've seen, you hear about people who drink every day and they smoke cigarettes or cigars, and they still end up living to 90 plus, right? So, yep. For the most part, those people aren't the norm. I think they're just the odd people that we hear about. But the norm is that if you smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, you will probably pass away, unfortunately. So it's taking care of yourself first before you can start looking at how to help other people as well, right? Because your goal may be, helping people and getting on track with that. But if you aren't helping yourself and taking care of your mental state and your physical state, then, that goal of helping people may inspire you, but it may not be able to inspire you to help them the way you really want them.
Yeah, and I think that definitely goes back to what I was saying earlier, and I think I've even read this in a book, and it did challenge me at first, for sure, but you got to help yourself first if you want to help others. So out of the overflow of the supply that you have, you're able to help others. But if you have no overflow, if you don't have an abundance, if you're not prospering in that thing, then you don't really have anything to offer others. So don't be too quick to get there. It's like we got to fill ourselves up, and then we can share with others. And I'm sure, many talk show hosts or other inspirational figures like Oprah would probably say the same thing.
For sure. And, one of the things that I remember when I was in the social networking here, or networking through what we used to do here on the side years and years ago. But one of the things that you used to always say is fill up your buckets first, right, and then give from your buckets. So typically you'd go to one of the events, you're being taught, you're being educated, you're taking notes, you're being remotivated, and then you would take that to go out and build your business for the next 3-4 months. And you do deplete your motivation as well. So you do have to find ways to stay motivated and not just get back to your goals for 2017, but stay on track to completing your goals for 2017. Because if every 3 months you're listening to this episode and saying, oh, I got to get back to it, then there's obviously something that's still missing in keeping you inspired to keep going for your goals as well.
Exactly. Like what we said earlier about course correction. So what's your next point, Matt?
Awesome. One of the things that I was thinking about here too is if you're having trouble on getting back to your goals for 2017, the couple of things that I'm implementing for myself is not just because I'm having troubles, is because I want to ensure I don't have troubles in the future. Is I'm actually going to be looking at getting a mentor, because I find that if I have a mentor, then I have somebody that I can stay responsible to for my own self, right? So, and it's somebody who can actually help me, as you said, course correct when I'm going the wrong way. It's kind of like the book The Slight Edge, like you mentioned it a few times in a couple different podcasts too. But as soon as I'm going in the wrong direction, that mentor can push me in the right direction. They can guide me. They can ask me the questions and say, hey, well, why are you doing these things? And really challenge the way I'm thinking, maybe my mindset, right? Also, my goal is to read more books this year as well, to kind of help me along with my goals as well. It's also to be more positive, right? I think if you're positive, confident, it brings about confidence as well. It not only gets you back on track, it keeps you on track, right? One of the things you said was reviewing your goals as well. And I love that idea. Listening to positive podcasts. I think an educational podcast like this one and any of the other ones that you also enjoy listening to, right? Because I'm not naive to say that this is the only podcast we listen to, because this is not, we listen to our own podcasts, we record them, and then we also listen to other podcasts that we get inspiration from as well.
Big time. And it's that thing of, if you want to excel in a certain area of life, then you should seek out a mentor in that area of life. If you want to be more spiritual person, you could set an appointment with your pastor or priest every week to have a discussion with him to talk about matters of spirituality and religion. You could, hire a trainer at the gym to help you get in shape. You can hire a business coach or find a business coach or mentor that's willing to help you along and move forward in your business. And it's especially helpful if you're looking for a business mentor to be in a different industry or a different niche than they are, because that way there's no competitive thing happening where you're giving away trade secrets or things that information that you don't really want to share with them. So whatever it is, and I'm thinking about along the same lines too. Is there a business mentor out there for me? Is there someone that can teach me what I need to know? Is there somebody that can help me along and make more progress, as opposed to me just grinding it out myself and trying to learn the right things? Because Mav and I had a discussion recently about relevance. You could be listening to a great podcast by a great host and great guests and everything, but if that podcast or that message doesn't speak to you at that particular time, if it's not the right information that you need right now, it doesn't matter how good the information is. It's good for the future, and it might help you in a future situation that you find yourself in, but what about stuff that helps you right now?
No, you got a great point. I'm going to just give you an example of that. I don't know if you've seen this episode of Seinfeld where Jerry says to George, he's like, yeah, when you read Moby Dick the second time, it's a different ending. And obviously he's joking with him, but the journey that, based on the experiences you've gone through in that book, will be a different journey when you read it the second time, the third time, and the fourth time, because you grow from it. So I love what you just said, and it made me really think about that example, because as we continue to grow and learn and do the things that we need to do to accomplish our goals, everything we do will be different, even though we've already experienced it maybe many times over.
It's that thing of spaced repetition. Like, I read a bunch of books towards the end of 2016 that I'd already read before, but I get something different out of them now. Like reading a leadership book when you're in network marketing versus reading a leadership book when you're in your business for yourself are two very different things, I was finding out, Mav. And I think I can relate more to the message now that I'm kind of doing something that I care about and believe in versus something that I couldn't really see myself staying in long term.
Right. And, this is funny because even before we started speaking on this episode here, one of the things I mentioned to you is I'm not going to be reading as many motivational books
Right.
as I've read in the past. And you asked me, he's like, well, I guess you're motivated now, hey? And I said, absolutely. I'm motivated. I'm ready to go. I needed it up to a certain point, and I still listen to motivational podcasts here and there. I still will read a motivational book because I don't want to get away from that motivation, right? Where I have to, get back to my goal. So I still want to know what's motivating me and how to keep myself motivated. I think it's always a good idea. But if I'm only ever focusing on staying motivated and motivating myself and not taking the next step, which might scare me towards my goals, I'll never take it, right? So that's one of the things I was saying to you. I'm going to do that for myself, because in order for me to, I think I've built that foundation. Now it's to start building that home on that foundation, or my future.
Partly it's about how many times can you read about the same principles, right? Set your goals, think long term, be consistent in life, study, become a student. All these things are like true and very important. They just, after a while, they don't necessarily hit you the right or the same way they used to, maybe when you were brand new to personal development.
Right. I think if you continually read those books or listen to those type of audio programming on repetition and don't take action on them, then the message eventually gets lost. True. I know for myself, I think that's where I was. So as soon as we started, putting this project together, it motivated me. I knew I wanted to do something like this. I wanted to, have my own website as well. I wanted to be able to blog, and I knew you were already doing it. So it's like, that motivated me when I saw you doing it. And now I know that it was possible for myself to do it. Right. And I didn't need that additional motivation once I started. And that's the key, right? Once you get started in applying the things that you need to do to get to your goals, that should be motivation enough. Because if that's not inspiring you to do it, then you have to rethink, I think, what your true inspiration really is then.
Yeah. And I think that's also coming back to a thing of application being kind of tough. You read an entire book that's 200, 300, 400 pages. And if you haven't been taking notes, note taking is kind of a key point. If, you were half asleep as you were reading it, if the author didn't quite present it in a way that's immediately applicable, Rich Dad, Poor Dad comes to mind. There's books out there that, like, again, I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great book. It's very inspirational. I think there's a lot of great things in it, but there's nothing in there about what's next. And there's a lot of books like that where there's nothing about. So application can be very difficult for a variety of reasons, but that's one of the reasons why I think it's good to, read through a book multiple times too. You'll take out all the pieces that you are actually able to apply in that moment, and applying everything at once is hard. So like taking one thing at a time and then breaking it down and applying it to your life. And that creates habits a lot easier, I think, than trying to do everything at once.
Love it. The next thing I wrote here was to revisit the steps that you took at the beginning of the year and then expanding on them, right? So again, this goes with goal setting. So if you set a plan of action, a course of action that you're going to take, step 1, step 2, step 3, but maybe you're missing a step in between those, right? Maybe you need a step 1A. You decide to get up at 5:30, but then part of that step is you haven't decided to set your alarm for 5:30. You have to have a reason, right? Maybe you keep your phone by your bedside, but you want to get out of bed by 5:30, and because your phone's by your bedside, you always just hit the snooze on your phone, because guess what? No one uses an alarm clock anymore, right? So maybe move your phone to the other side of your bedroom, right? I mean, these are concepts everybody's probably heard of, but in order to get out of bed physically, you have to then go to your phone and turn it off, right? So find ways, so break it down. That's one of the things I learned by listening to Think Act Get. Actually, that's one of the things James Shremko said was, have an exact step-by-step, get up, set alarm, get up, pull the covers off, put one foot out, put the other foot out, stand up, and break it down to the simplest form, right? And then you follow those exact steps until you start doing them and they become a habit. Once it's a habit and you don't need to think about it, then move on to setting another goal.
Absolutely. Another great thing that James Schramko talks about is the 5 whys, right? So sometimes getting to the root of a problem within a company is very difficult. So you ask your employee why, but the first answer that you get is not the right answer. So you go 5 whys deep. You keep going, why did it break down? Why was communication? Why was, so on and so forth? And you keep going until you arrive at the answer. I think it's kind of the same thing with goal setting and determining what your motivation is. Go deeper. be willing to ask yourself why 5 times and keep elaborating on that answer. Don't give the same answer every time. Give a new answer or a deeper answer or a more true answer to yourself 5 times, and I think you'll find that what your motivation truly is.
Right. And I love that idea of asking yourself why 5 times. I've never heard that before, so I really like that concept. Maybe I just haven't got to that episode yet.
Yeah, could be that.
But I do like that idea, right? Because if you ask yourself why, then you are looking for that deeper understanding within yourself. Because if you know that you aren't hitting your goals, it's only you can really understand why you're not getting there, right? No one else can answer that for you.
Yeah.
Just like no one can answer why you're motivated by it either. So if you really start digging deeper, and I found that through meditation, I'm able to dig deeper and find my why, right? I don't necessarily ask myself 5 times. Maybe I'll start doing that in my meditation and, see where that gets me, asking myself the deeper question of why maybe a few more times. I usually find that within about 2-3 whys, I can typically get there. But you're right. If I ask myself a couple more times, maybe I'll be able to, peel off the layer of that onion and get a little bit deeper. I think that's what, psychiatrists do as well, right? They kind of,
that's right.
Lay you down and say, okay, well, tell me why you feel this way. Tell me why you think that on that answer, right? And they'll just keep digging and digging and digging, and they'll figure out it's your mom or dad that's your problem.
Yeah, it's kind of also how Dianetics works. But I like what you say about breaking things down. Like in the last 2 years, I have read 52 books both years, into 2015 and 2016. But that is impossible if you don't have a reading habit. So you got to get in the habit of reading, breaking it down. Even thinking about what are the specific books I'm going to read. I know that you line them up all on your shelf, Maveen. I think that's a great idea. Or even just making a list and writing them down, or even putting them publicly on your website saying, these are the books I'm reading, like I did. And those are some of the ways to make sure that you're actually getting into the regular habit that leads to the completion of the goal.
Right. And I broke it down even further into that too, right? So once I picked the books, I actually looked at exactly how many pages each book had. And then I divided it by the number of days that I needed to read that book into, right? So my goal this year, for example, is 30 books this year, right? Mm-hmm. So in order for me to read 30 books in a year, I have to be able to read, depending on the length of those books, one book every 12 days. So I had to figure out exactly how many pages then I have to read per day to get to that goal, right? In some of my books, I just need to read maybe 6 pages a day. And obviously, I know I can read way more than 6 pages a day. So I'll probably end up reading closer to 20 or 30 pages a day and get done that book a lot quicker. But then some of the longer books, I got to read 20 to 25 pages a day or more. And my goal is always, I don't just read 25 pages, although that is my goal. I always try to read to the end of that chapter. So I do end up reading a few more pages than my actual goal is, right? So it's kind of going over that minimum goal that I've set for myself. So I know for sure that I will be able to, accomplish that goal by the end and maybe hit 31 or 32 books by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's one way of making sure that you get there and get to where you want to go. I wanted to talk just quickly about, rethinking your approach to goal setting if your current model isn't working. So a lot of different models are taught in the world. Probably among them, one of the more common ones, and I think well-meaning ones, is the SMART goals. Making sure that your goals are time-bound and they're realistic and specific and all that kind of stuff. Not just saying, I want to lose weight, but saying, I want to lose 20 pounds by this specific date, and thinking about the steps that you need to take to get there. It just something to think about is your current goal setting model could be holding you back if you find that you're repeatedly falling short. Like if you're falling short but you're coming close to your goals every single time, well, that's great. You set a goal to earn 6 figures, but you made 90,000. I don't know too many people that would be angry about that if their previous year's income was much less than that. So you've still come close to your goals. And so I think that's fine. But if you're falling way, way, way short, like you're not even getting to 30% achievement within your goals, it's maybe time to think about a different goal setting model. And let me give you an example. The prior year, I decided that I couldn't really accomplish like metric based goals and like in terms of how much money I made, or like I could have control over how many blog posts I wrote. So that's something I felt I have control over, but I couldn't necessarily think about how many subscribers I would get as a result of writing those blog posts. So I kind of put those metric based goals aside, and I made my goals all actionable. So they were all action steps that I could actually do, as opposed to being some kind of number that I was supposed to be reaching.
I love it. And when you have the action goal, that's exactly what we're saying, right? That's an application.
Yeah.
So it's applying the knowledge you have. You know that if you keep doing the steps properly and guiding yourself through those steps, you'll eventually get to the goal you want, right? In your back of your mind, you kind of know what kind of money you want to make. You know what your goals are for your business. You know what, how many people you want to have subscribing, and not just subscribing, and opening those emails and looking at what you're doing, right? And I think, one of the things that we will eventually do down the road here is look at maybe how to increase traffic to our websites, blog, and podcast as well, because that, again, having those goals will help us, with that too. And I think a lot of people listening to this will probably also enjoy that podcast. But once you knew what you wanted, keep telling yourself, I want to lose weight. But how about I want to lose 15 pounds? I love what you said there. And then develop an action step, because that's how you accomplish anything, right? And that's kind of why, like I was saying to you, and I think I've told you this off mic as well, that's the reason I wanted to stop reading motivational books, because I read so many of them that I had actually forgot to start applying that information, because I got into such a habit of reading and not applying, right? So although my goal is still actually to read more books than I did last year, it's actually to now also apply more information than I did last year. So I like that idea of as well, being able to, have the right steps to keep applying, and what you want will eventually come.
And it's interesting, like I just read Virtual Freedom, or finished reading Virtual Freedom by Chris Ducker. It's actually a bit of a longer book too. I think there's 250 or 300 pages in it. But, it is a great book. I think it definitely covers the steps as far as hiring a virtual team in Philippines or overseas or other places that you might be looking to hire people for, various reasons. It might be the reduced labor, or, cutting costs with office space and things like that. But there wasn't this, like, it's not all applicable to me right this moment as far as hiring a virtual assistant. Is it something I'm thinking about? Yes. And I'm also trying to think about whether it's better for me to hire a personal assistant that could be working closer to me versus a virtual assistant who's overseas and I have to give instructions to and keep an eye on. I don't know if one is necessarily easier or more difficult than the other, because I don't really have experience with that. But these are things that I'm thinking about, which is why I'm like reading a little bit ahead on what that would look like. But there were still some like 2 or 3 things that I could take away immediately. Chris Ducker spends one chapter talking about content. Well, content is something I'm doing daily, all the time, not just in my own business, but in other people's business. So he talked about like a simple research process to send to his virtual assistants for how to find keywords and how to put together content that's well researched and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, well, here's a simple 4-step process that I can now implement immediately to increase the effectiveness of my content. So that's something that I'm taking away. But that's another, I'm just speaking to this whole idea of can be difficult to apply the knowledge at times, but still, if you're open, there might be 2 or 3 things you can take away from a book that are valuable to you right now.
Right. And I liked what you said earlier about the idea of thinking outside the box as well, right? So I was listening to a podcast by Donald Kelly and the Sales Evangelist, and I don't remember the exact episode anymore, but what he was saying was, in the interviewer was saying, I guess, they were trying to think outside the box. So what they did was they invited 8 different businesses, and they invited, about 20 different clients or something like that. And what they did was like a speed dating kind of a concept. So that each business would get to sit with the client and have to tell their pitch, the 40 second pitch, their elevator pitch, and then, time, then you'd switch and you do the same thing again with the next client. And then it'd be a lot quicker way of finding the right match for the client as well as the business. And I just thought it was really different for the way they thought, right? Because if we keep using the same approaches to try to accomplish the goals that we've been always trying, what's the Einstein saying there? If you keep doing what you
always did, you keep getting what you always got.
Yeah. So, and that's the definition of insanity, right? So if you keep doing it and not getting to where you want to go, as you can tell by the statistics you read at the starting of the show, a lot of people unfortunately are falling short. So,
well, and 50% of people are not even setting resolutions. That's
Right.
crazy.
I think we'd have to, that's maybe another episode, but, why are not people setting goals, right? What are they afraid of? Failure or success, right? That was one of the things I know me and you've talked about as well. And I think I've answered that question to you about what I'm afraid of. But, it's interesting. I think a lot of people don't set it for, whatever reason it is. I think maybe they're comfortable where they are and, and don't want to set bigger goals, and not necessarily you have to set goals, right? Maybe if you're happy with everything you have and where your life is at this moment, like we said, right, you may not need to set goals in this moment. Maybe you need to set goals a little bit later because they may not be the right goals. So, but if you're saying 50% of the people aren't setting goals at all, and if that's ever
resolutions, right?
Wow. Well, even resolutions. To me, that's still kind of a goal, right?
They might have goals separate from that, because I know there's some cynicism around New Year's resolution. But
right.
Yeah, I think ideally everyone should have some kind of New Year's resolution.
Right. Well, see, and maybe I approach it a little bit different. I don't look at New Year's resolutions. I look at what are my New Year's goals. So what are my goals for the next 12 months? I don't think I've ever actually set a resolution. I don't even know what a resolution would be. But for me, it's just like, I set myself anywhere between 10 and 15 goals for the year and then go from there, right? I guess if I had a resolution, I guess get healthy is probably the easiest one, right? That most people probably pick.
Yeah. And the statistics is absolutely crazy. 45% Americans usually make a resolution, and 49% say they have infrequent success. So that means only 25% say they have maybe somewhat frequent success, and 24% of that 49% say they never succeeded with it at all. So, we can kind of guess how many people are actually doing well with it.
Well, and it's funny you read that stat, and as you're reading it again, it made me think about how many people go to school, get a job, and then go to work, right? Go to school, get an education, go to work. And I mean, it's the same type of concept. Nothing is being changed in the teaching of how to accomplish your goals. We all know we can go online and we can, read about how to, have more people come to our website for traffic. But if you keep following the same principles and they're not working, and you just say, well, something's wrong here, I read exactly what it says and it's not doing it for me, and you keep trying to implement the exact same solution, it's not going to work. It's going to break down and you're not going to get the success that you want, right? So unfortunately, it is a little bit of a rant here, but it's the same thing when people go to school. I was listening to the Obama speech, his last speech that he did before he left office, and something caught me. It was a great speech. He's a great speaker, but one of the things he said was, the world is going to change for the middle class with the inventions of the technologies that we're having. More jobs are going to be lost to technology. Then he turns around and says right after that statement, that's why we need to educate our kids. So you're telling me we're going to lose jobs in the middle class, but then we need to spend more money, or the kids need to spend more money, put themselves into further debt to not be able to get a job later.
Makes no sense.
So you have to really listen to what is being told to you and taught to you. And if we keep using that old mindset of setting goals, just like we're being taught the same thing over and over again without putting a tweak into your process, you're always going to get to these negative statistics that we're reading here.
What you're talking about made me think of, but basically like a caveman approach to life. Like it's closer to a to-do list than a goal list. Jimmy get degree. Jimmy have degree. Jimmy get wife. Jimmy have wife. Jimmy get home. Jimmy have home. Jimmy get car now. I get car. That's just a to-do list. That's not much of a goal list. Everybody has those things in North America. That's how fortunate we are here in North America, if we have any international listeners. But bottom line, that's not a goal list at all. And maybe we do, in some ways have that luxury of actually thinking about what we want beyond our basic needs. Our basic needs are essentially covered here. I mean, I know some people are going through hard times and everything, so don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that are broke in debt and worse, but for the vast majority of people, our basic needs are covered, and in some ways it is a luxury to be able to think about what we want to achieve above and beyond that.
Absolutely. And one of the things, the last point I have written over here, David, is look at your current goals and then review them and understand why you set them. I think we've talked about all this as we've talked, but if it's still valid, then develop a plan to stay on track or change the plan and tweak it. If it's not valid anymore because you've tried something in your business, it didn't work, or your business has taken a different direction, the CEO has changed, or you've changed, you've learned something new, a new process has come, new products, new tools have been developed, the industry is changing daily, and if we're going to continue using the old style of thinking, even at the starting of January 1st to accomplish our goals here in April or so, we might fail because what we thought was right in January may not be correct in the time that we're listening to this podcast today.
Yeah. And I think that totally connects to my last point too, which is probably mostly just reinforcement at this point, which is that are you willing to update and change your goals as necessary? Because you might go through a process where your goal is a long-term goal and maybe it takes you 1 year, maybe it takes you 5 years, maybe it takes you 10 years, but somewhere along that line you begin to feel more motivated, more inspired by different things. It doesn't mean that you're changing your goal entirely, but you might need to pivot a little bit, adjust by a few degrees, and make it into something that is still relevant to you and still motivating to you. So you at points in, you might want to check at certain points every 90 days or every year or whatever works for you, just to see where you're at, and then ask yourself if that goal still matters to you. And if you're saying hell yeah, go with it, but if you're like maybe, then readjust, because that's probably not the goal that you want to go for. And also what I said about 90 days, I think that's another thing we can all do to better manage our expectations is living in 90-day capsules. And the thing about 90 days is it seems really short, but guess what? That's a quarter of a year. So setting 2 or 3 goals per quarter is probably the most you really want to do if you really think long and hard about it. And if you go by that model, I think you will increase your success rate, as opposed to going, well, I have an entire year, I'm just going to set as many goals as I want, 20, 30, 40, 50. No, because 90 days is short and you only got 4 of those in a year.
Right. And, even if you do set, let's say 30 goals, break them down, like you said, break them down. And if you're talking about quarters, for example, you can divide that, or divide it by monthly and divide it by, maybe 2 goals a month is all you can handle. Maybe 2 goals in 90 days is all you can handle, depending on what your goals is. I think a lot of times people's goals are sometimes habit building goals versus, direct goals on what they want to accomplish as well. So if it can take you up to, 90 days to build a habit. Sometimes it can take you longer. It can be a lot shorter than that as well, right?
I agree.
I think you have to be in that moment of decision and say, you know what, I'm going for it. Same thing for me. To get out of bed at 5:30, I had to make a decision on saying, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to get out of bed. I have to do this because, I want to work out. I want to meditate. And in order for me to accomplish both of those, they do take almost, close to an hour of my time each day. So I decided, I got to get up an hour earlier to be able to do this, but I want to keep that going into the future. So getting up at a bit earlier time means also that I'm going to go to bed potentially at a little bit later time as well. So I'm not consuming all the, the garbage that's on TV as well at nighttime. I'm not at 10 o'clock. Typically, I'm turning off my TV if it's on even, and then I'm not worried about it. I'm now trying to get into this relaxed time, spend time with my wife as well, right? So
yeah, no, that's really great. The reason I would bring up the 90-day capsule, it's something that I'm learning too. But, James Franco talks about it. Even Michael Hyatt talks about it. So I was like, well, that made me pay attention. So that's what I'm working towards. That's what my whiteboard says, 90-day goals. And, it's not fully fleshed out, but I think, with the pace that I'm keeping and everything that I'm looking to accomplish, I should be able to get a book or 2 or 3 or even 5 out this year. Wow. Based on, the work that I'm putting in. So
right. And I like what you said too with the 90-day goals, because I don't probably call it 90-day goals, but I like the idea of that each goal that I've set, and as soon as I accomplish it, I always set another goal that adds to it, like I said, to that foundation, right? I want to keep building that on top of my foundation. So even though the goal started, for example, at losing weight or losing fat, it wasn't about losing weight, because I'm at healthy weight. 170 pounds is pretty healthy, but I looked at my body composition and said, well, I want to lose a little bit of fat on my body, so right. I'm not necessarily looking to convert convert 150, to 150 pounds. I'm looking to maybe stay at 170 pounds, but turn that fat into a little bit more muscle, right? So I guess looking at what my goal is and understanding it, because it's easy to say I want to lose weight, but do you really want to lose weight, or do you really want to convert the way your body looks and maybe, change the way you look and feel about yourself?
That actually made me think of theme words. So that's something maybe I'll mention real quick, because I think we want to wrap up here soon. But Chris Brogan says he sets new theme words, I think 3 for each year. And I kind of started doing the same thing a few years ago now. And this year I have adventure, collaboration, and health. And those are there more or less just as reminders. It's on my wall, so I see it pretty much every day. But those are the things that I want. I'm just setting an intention more than anything else. These are not resolutions that I have to keep. These are not goals that I have to accomplish. These are just things that I want to be steady, consistent themes in my life throughout the year. And here we are collaborating, so that's awesome. I am eating well.
Well, this is also an adventure, isn't it?
It is absolutely. And business is always an adventure. So it definitely is. With health, I'm eating well consistently. I'm exercising consistently. I'm also scheduling those cheat meals on a Friday and things like that. So I'm keeping closer watch on all those kinds of things. I wouldn't say it's perfect. I wish I could get more sleep, but those are the things that I'm working on. So even just having those there and affecting you or influencing you subconsciously over time, don't underestimate the power of that. Just setting the intention. Wayne Dyer has the book, The Power of Intention. It's a great book. It sure is. And I think there's power in it more than we sometimes realize.
I love it. And I don't necessarily put it out like the way you did adventure, collaboration, and health. What my statement, I don't have 3 words, but I had a statement. It just goes, this is meditation. So everything I do is meditation, and it's just the reason I use that is because I want to always make sure I'm in the present moment, right?
Awareness.
It was to bring about awareness of what I'm doing, because I know it's so easy to think into the future and think many days into the future. And I've even noticed, when I'm meditating, sometimes my mind will wander to the future. So I just say to myself, this moment is meditation. And then I focus back onto the moment, focus back onto my breathing. Just like if you got in your goals, right? If you have a deadline to try to meet, just know that this moment is the moment you have. You can't do anything but other than try to meet that deadline if you're behind. And everything you can do, find the right people to help you, develop the right plan to get you to where you want to go. Sometimes it's not just getting to that goal by yourself. You can't do a collaboration by yourself. You have to work with other people, right? So you obviously thought about what that word meant or to you, and what that goal of being a collaborator will do for you as well, right? It not only means that you get to make a new friend, you get to interact with different type of audience as well, because the audience that we have is an audience that enjoys us, the banter between 2 of us together, or the talk between 2 of us, and sometimes the arguments between the 2 of us, right? But if they didn't, if you didn't collaborate with me, that's okay too. You would have had maybe somebody else to collaborate with. Or the nice thing about it is, it looks like, based on what I know you are like, you're probably looking to potentially collaborate on more than one type of show and do this type of podcast.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Whether it's podcast or new music releases or book releases and courses, ebooks, interviews, on and on it goes. There's many forms to it, but yeah, you're exactly right. Establishing yourself in different niches. And ultimately, I think, we were upfront about this in our first show or first few shows too, but, we want to direct traffic to our individual sites and build awareness for that too. So we're really conscious of our brands and what we're trying to build here, and the connection points and how we can intersect and integrate all those things to be something meaningful.
Absolutely. Well said. And I think that's kind of what we've learned that does work best for us, right? I mean, We've obviously going to develop some products, and you guys will be able to see that coming down the pipeline here. That'll be something that we develop as a brand together. But to understand the brand together, you do have to understand the brand that's separate from who we are as well, right? Because, our personality is not just who we are on the mic when we're together. It's also, our personalities are who we are when we're away from the mic and not spending, 24 hours a day together. together, because we don't.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that can be definitely found on the Music Entrepreneur HQ. It can also be found on discoveryourlifetoday.com as well, right? So, I mean, there's many different products that you have on there. You have a couple books, definitely some free giveaways. I know with what's coming out, you've been able to help me put out some free giveaways on mine. I'm not sure if the book will be out by the time that this podcast is released, but, take a look at the website, and if it's out there, please definitely take a look at picking it up.
Yes, absolutely. Any final thoughts?
My final thoughts, really, wow. I think if we should, if you haven't been able to achieve some of the goals that you've wanted to, maybe just review what your goals were, review the steps to the goals that you had set in place. Like I said earlier as well, break down the steps to the simplest form. That's something that I learned by listening to somebody else, and I'm just kind of rehashing that information back to our listeners, because you may not have the time to go back and listen to all the different episodes I've listened to, but to give you that knowledge, simply, it's much easier just to listen to it here. Find a reason, and once you know it, tell other people about it. Review that reason with other people. Get other people potentially on board with your goal and get them to help you, because I like the idea of collaboration. No one is a self-made millionaire, no matter what they tell you. They'll always have people helping them. So just like when you're setting your goals, you're going to need somebody to help you and keep you on track to setting your goals and accomplishing your goals.
Yeah, and to that point, not everybody is good at keeping other people accountable. So you got to find somebody who is good or is willing to learn how to do a better job of keeping you accountable. I know, having gone through, various accountability things in different contexts and with different people and for different purposes, it can be tricky. But, what you need is just enough of it. You may not need it for the rest of your life. You might just need it for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe even a year. But after that point, you can begin to keep yourself accountable too. But I agree. If you have supporters, if you have people telling you, showing you, demonstrating that they care about your future, your goals and everything else, those are great people to keep in your lives and to continue to interact with them to make sure that you are on track. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. This has been Using Your Power. Find us at usingyourpower.com.
Thank you.